Today's guest is Elijah Nisenboim. He is the founder of Effiji Breathwork. He's also the author of 3 books. He helps people through trauma and guides them to their true life purpose. He's composed and recorded over 25 volumes of music made for breathwork. He was kind enough to take me through an Effiji Breathwork session, and today I'm going to share that experience with you. I can't wait for you to hear from Elijah. Who's the person you're being? Are you satisfied? Welcome to Be the Person, a podcast for the brave and the curious, for people ready to explore their true potential. I'm your host, Annie Randall. Join me and let's get ready to go on this journey together. Welcome to Be the Person podcast. I am super excited for you to hear from today's guest. I've got to know him over the past few weeks and had a really cool experience we're going to share together. Welcome, Elijah. Now I'm going to just say it wrong. Nisenboim.
Do it.
Is that say
If
it
you
right?
try again, we got what, a half hour. Just keep going until you get it right. It's
Okay.
Nisenboim. You wouldn't be the first person to get it wrong, so don't feel
There
bad.
we go. After we just practiced too.
Yeah. You don't want to tell people we've been practicing.
Right? We'll keep it real on here. So
Yeah.
I'm super excited to share my experience, share about you, because this was something totally new for me. And I learned about you through your book and then also through the session you led me through for Effiji Breathwork, which you're the
Mhm.
founder of. You're an author of a fantastic book. And I want you just to share a little bit about your story and then how you ended up where you did.
Um, well, first of all, where did I end up and which story do you want me to share? I think it's interesting because there's a bigger story here about you, because in some ways you were not. I think the place I want to start is because I was thinking about having this call having the podcast with you. I've done lots of podcasts and with people who don't necessarily know my work, or they've heard about breath work or something, but it's the rare person who's actually interested to read something about it. And we went back and forth for a few months, and then you came and experienced the breath work. So that's different for me. And just for your audience's sake, just like it says something about you, like you're authentic. You're not going to just go and talk to someone and read the points. Like you came and we stuck with it in our conversation till we finally had that session. So it says a lot about how you do your work. Uh, yeah, and I had an amazing time sharing the breath work with you too. So that was my deflection. So now, what was your question about me?
Well, one, I appreciate that because it is true. Like when I interview someone, I want to be really well prepared. So if they've written something, I definitely
Yeah,
try to read it. And I think I even told you that in our first email. Like you sound
yeah.
really interesting, this whole concept, but I really don't understand it. And you were kind enough to walk me through a whole session. And so I love to come because then I can talk about my
Mm,
experience, ask better
yeah,
questions for this
yeah.
conversation.
Well, um, I would say I grew up in a normal middle class Jewish family in Canada. Um, and at least on the outside, I was just sort of a normal, gentle, sensitive kid. But I think right from the beginning of my life, I never really found the right sort of structures or reflection back to who I was, I'm not blaming anybody, starting with my parents in school and this sort of thing. And so I always felt a little bit like confused about what I was doing here or how to be mentored to see myself. And music was my passion and I wanted to be a musician. And I did become a musician in my 20s. Um, but even when I was a musician, I was playing in this, how I got to the breath work. I was playing in this rock and roll piano bar. And I was often sending people home like, you're drinking too much, like that's enough for you. Like I got fired because I was more interested in the relationship I was having with people from the stage than I was to, oh, look at me. And as I wrote in my book, there was a massage place next door, and I went there because it was pretty rough playing in this place, and I made friends with the woman, and then her and her husband were moving to California, and he did breath work. This was in 1990, so I traded helping put stuff in storage to do this breath work, and that one session changed my life. I mean, changed my life also that I'm sitting with you now, 35 years later, talking about breath work is sort of astonishing to me because I wasn't looking for something. Well, I was I was going to therapy at the time. I had just started. I was in my mid 20s. My father had had an affair, classic stuff. I couldn't find my way in the world. And I had a lot of insecurity and lots of problems. And then I went and did this breath work, and it was so profound. Just the one time I quit therapy right then. And then when they went to California, and he had a training, I don't even think they had email. I think I got a letter in the mail. And then I signed up for this training, and I immediately, when I came back from it, I just started sharing the breath work with everybody because I was just so blown away by it. And slowly that became my life. And I moved to California. I followed my teacher out and sort of became his showrunner for 10 years and had a center in San Francisco. And then I parted with him. And at that time, I tried every type of breath work over those years and experimented. And when I left him, 2001, I branded Effiji Breath as being what I thought was the ultimate way to do this particular kind of breath work. And just to say to your audience, like breath work is generic breath work. It's just the conscious use of your breath. So you have nose breathing, mouth breathing, inhale, exhale, left side, right side, holding the breath. That's all the breath work techniques there are. The lungs are the only organ in your body that you can operate manually. And because breath gives life, the power of the universe, the light, God, is in the breath. And so any conscious use of the breath has the ability to like shine a light inside you, give you life, um, just make you aware of all kinds of things, give you strength and balance. But my particular technique, the one that you did with me for an hour, is conscious hyperventilating through the mouth. And most people think there's no way I can do this for an hour. But I'm on a podcast where you've done it for an hour, so you can speak to the fact that you can do it. And it releases trauma. It it's a miraculous tool, and every time you do it, it's a miraculous tool. So,
Explain to me more, the audience, exactly how you do it, because I know you explained
yeah,
it as hyperventilating, but give me a
yeah,
little more detail.
yeah. So you're you're laying on your back, and you're breathing in the center of the chest, right here. And it's interesting. When I discovered this as being the way to breathe, I didn't know later two things. One is that this is the heart center. If you think about where our injuries are, the heart chakra. I've studied um, Taoism, internal martial arts, and like they call this the ocean of chi, the infinite ocean of chi, the heart center. So you're breathing in your heart center with your mouth open. You're focused on the inhale. So it's inhale, mouth, chest, and I'll just do a few breaths, and it's like there's a rhythm to it. So it's like in the echo cancellation, maybe you didn't hear me, I don't know. But um and so you're doing that laying on your back for an hour without stopping. And maybe you can tell people what happens when you do that. Do you want to, or do you have more questions?
Well, I have a couple more questions, and then I would
Sure.
love to tell my experience because it
Yeah.
was one of the most unique things I've ever experienced. But I
Yeah.
was really glad in your book, Trauma Code: Uncovering
Mm.
the Hidden Map to Life's Truest Purpose. When I read it, you really walk people through like some different stages, which I appreciated because, again, going into it not really knowing much, I was glad I knew what you told me. Can you tell a little bit about what
Yeah.
people normally expect?
Yeah. Well, the Trauma Code book is only 100 pages. It took me about 3 weeks to write 300 pages, but it took me a year and a half to make a short book. And I wanted to encapsulate everything that I knew and understood about the work of releasing trauma, the work of personal growth. So part of the book is about releasing trauma, and the second section is about the breath work. And because it's very hard to describe what happens, like people who do psychedelics and stuff like that, you say, well, what's it like to do plant medicine or things like that? Like, it's hard to describe. So I all these years, and also I train many people to be facilitators, and the challenge they have when they're working with people is, how do you explain to people what it is? And it'll be interesting to hear what you say. So I was really after, like, could I write about the breath work in a way that you would get a visceral feeling for what it's about? Also, I have a system. It's not just breathing for an hour. There are different stages of the breath work, and anything can happen. So I say there's 6 stages of the breath work. And in that one section, I went through each stage. And also, people can go to the streaming services, and I have all kinds of volumes of music. But last year, I put out 6 volumes of music, one for each stage of the music. So if you're a facilitator and you want to know, oh, what should I use for the rhythmic part, you can just go to the rhythm album. So, but I was really careful to not to let people know that, like, this could be terrifying. It could be really emotional. It's not going to be easy. You don't even have to like it. um, and I think that's the section. And you said to me before we started, you were, a little worried about what would happen. Um, and so, if breath is life, gives you life, then breath is God. Now, we all are separate from this the ocean of existence. This is the only thing we're really suffering from, is our sense of separation, and all these things we have, like anxiety and worry and anger and depression and physical health issues, even a lack of abundance. It all comes from our the separation that's come out of trauma and conditioning. And so when you start to use the breath in this way, it takes you back home to this sense of wholeness, but it also really puts in front of you what's in the way, your own resistance to that wholeness. Because I don't see uh, I don't see the breath work as religious per se. When I say God, I just mean wherever you come from, whatever your creator myth is, however you got here when you took that first breath, like, we're separate from that. All this negativity that we have comes from this separation. And it's just easy in religious terms to people to think about concepts like forgiveness or unconditional love. But to get there, we have to go through the part of us that we don't know, that lives in that separation, because we're resistant, because we don't want to experience pain. We don't want to experience the pain of the past. And our mind is designed to protect us, to make sure that we don't come in contact with these old memories. So when you start to breathe like that, you come right up against the resistance as soon as you start. Um, and it's very dramatic, and it can be very emotional. And I want to say, yeah, breathe tens of thousands of people, and you are in the 1% of the 1%. Like, you breathe really full for the whole time. You can tell the audience and me what your experience was, but my experience with you was that you were committed and full and total, and I'm sure you're living your life like that as well. But most people will find it like I described in the book, like really daunting and bringing them up against things. But if you breathe into those things, you're liberated and you'll feel extraordinary after. But you felt extraordinary anyway. So yeah.
I did. And like I told you before, after reading that, I was a little bit nervous going in, like, can I do this? What am I going to experience? Because you don't know. But you just said, just commit for the hour. And so in my mind, I really did of like, yeah, I'm going to
Yeah.
commit. I
Did you
knew
have fear when you were doing it?
I didn't really like some things would come up, but then one, I think your voice of just, I felt safe with the
Mm,
music, with your voice.
mm,
And that like reassured me. And again, just knowing like to breathe through it, whatever came up, just keep breathing through it. What I really wasn't expecting, people always have talked about energy. And to some extent, I get that because, you can walk into a room and just be affected by somebody's energy. But
yeah.
for me, I had never felt energy flow as much in my body. It was
As
almost like,
sensation.
yes,
As sensation. Yeah. Feel the energy, you feel the chi, not just energy. Like, oh, I feel energized. It's not like that. You could literally feel the life force energy going through you as sensation, right?
yes, almost like an electric current.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was new to me of like, "Oh my gosh, wow, this is, something, again, I have never felt before." And then you talked about too, about your hands maybe curling up if you
Mm,
something emotional would
yeah.
come up, and that did happen. It was almost like and you couldn't control it. My hands would just come into, like, almost like a fist, but not quite.
Yeah. Yeah. It's called tetany.
Okay. And
Yeah.
just felt like I almost felt like a lot of different emotions come up.
Mm,
Like one time I remember like almost tears wanting to stream down.
mm,
The
mhm,
emotions of just like such love. Of like you talked about God, and that's what I felt. It was almost like the love of God just in me
mm.
and just flowing
It's
through.
funny, I don't talk about God usually on podcasts, but you talked about God at the end of the breath, and I had been feeling that to speak of this divine presence to you, but I didn't want to, if there was, set you off in a mental way in case you were destroyed by religion or whatever. But then
Yeah.
you brought it up. So that's why I brought it up in the podcast, is because, you know, you don't end up in this kind of work and help people with the meaning of their life and their life purpose and releasing trauma if you don't believe in or have a connection to a greater power. I mean, that's what breath is. You
Yeah.
know, yeah.
The other really interesting thing, because you told me ahead of time, you said, I'm going to give you time. I have time and space of like 20 minutes. If you need just to, after we're done, you'll let me know we were done and just don't feel in a hurry to get up.
Mm,
And honestly, I'm a very type A person of like, I like to
mm,
get a lot of stuff
yeah.
done. And I was like, "Oh, well, we'll be done." And I was really, really grateful for that time because it was this time just to, I don't even know, like come out of this state that I wasn't expecting to be in, which was so unique. And just, again, just such a grateful thing of kind of slowly going back into my body and releasing that energy.
Mm. Wow. Beautiful. You're
Yeah.
my perfect you're my perfect client. You you would be an amazing facilitator at this. I mean, your attunement, your sensitivity, and, like, you really got what it was, because sometimes people, I'm not kidding, will say, "This is the greatest thing that ever happened to me, I'll never do it again," or "I hated every second of it, and I'll never do it again," or people will drift, or like, a lot of everything that you can imagine will happen, but that's how you felt. It was how I felt the first time I did it. Actually, for me, as I wrote in my book, I had piano teachers who used to hit my hands with a ruler. So when I breathed, at some point in the middle of the session, I thought the guy had put his hand over my mouth, and I opened my eyes, and I was balled up like this with my hands like rocks pushed up against my mouth because I had so much trauma about expressing myself. I mean, that's all that the closed hands is just the release of blocked energy. Um, anyway, you were very devotional and full in it and got what it was. So what a blessing.
Yeah, it really was. I really felt grateful for that, and I was one who, I think I asked you right away, like, when do you do this again? Like, how can I do this? Because 'Cause I'm signing
Yeah.
up for the group session because
When
really
we're in our programs, we have one next year, and the first part is 5 days in person, and we breathe twice a day for 5 days.
oh,
So
wow.
yeah. So, it's more like a slingshot. Well, also, if you I think you might have asked me this, and maybe you're gonna ask me this, like, how often should you do it? But it depends on how much change you can handle or want. Like if your life is really difficult, like this will set you free. But if your life is in the wrong order, like you're just in the wrong life in some way, you start to do this, it can turn your life upside down. It's very powerful because it's like a spinning the wheel of your it's accelerating your life lessons. So
Mm,
um but you can do a lot of it. I mean, I do some every day. The last since 2017, I've breathed every day. I don't need to breathe for an hour. I mean, I breathe hundreds of times, but since 2000, April 2017, I've breathed every day for a period of time. I love
wow.
it.
Yeah. You talk about trauma, but you explain it in a different way. I think when people think of trauma, they think of the big T trauma, which I didn't
Yeah.
have that in my background. And so,
Mm.
but how you explained it really made sense to me. Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, uh, mm, trauma is just anything that didn't get processed through your being. And so it's not necessarily what somebody did to you, but it's just how you perceive something. And maybe you were left in your crib for 5 minutes longer than you should have been and you thought you were going to die. I don't know. But so trauma is just the unresolved events of the past. And whether remembered or not, whether big or small, you're born with a unique life purpose, like an acorn that wants to become an oak tree. And when something becomes unprocessed, it remains in you as the energy is held, like held together in some way. So the trajectory of your life purpose changes because your energy is blocked up. And why I called my book The Trauma Code is because I'm saying that it's not just bad things that we have to get rid of. It's it's the compost, the fertilizer for your life purpose, that the things that you haven't able to process are the lessons of your life that you need to learn in order to unlock its potential. And I can see all that inside the way people breathe, because the way you breathe in the breath is how you breathe and live in your life. And that's sort of the second part of my work when I start to work with someone is how to use the breath work to change your life, because everything you're doing in your life and all the unresolved things of the past show up in the way that you breathe. And the reason why it matters is that the things that get stuck that we have trouble dealing with in our life are become sort of the limitations of our life. And for most of us, and also it's not just trauma, it's conditioning. And so your parents, maybe even for your safety or survival with the best of intentions, maybe trained you to be a certain way that might have been different than who you are. So that even though they may not have been abusive or something like that, your environment, which was what I was describing for myself, the way I grew up, your environment trains you to be a certain way. but does that help you to be the unique oak tree that you're meant to be? So that's really the essence of what my work is for, is to help people to unlock their their potential that has been locked up through trauma and conditioning.
I love it when you explain it that way because everybody has that.
Yeah,
Everybody can use that. They
that's
need
right.
that. Yeah.
That's right. And the thing that's interesting, the thing that people who work with me like about me is my real, because I do lots of things. The breathwork's part of it, but I'm good at reading people and understanding them, and in deep way, sometimes in a shockingly deep way. But I was saying to you in our at the end of the breath work, and even this morning or today, it's not the morning, it's the afternoon, that you've kept sort of saying that this is new to you, and there was a certain way you described yourself, I think, as being unexperienced in a certain way, but
Mhm.
the 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 kind of person that I am most able to help is a person with an open heart. It doesn't matter what they know or don't know. Sometimes the most advanced people, the spiritual people, the people who read a lot of books, the people who do breath work, are the most difficult people to work with. Like, I think this work is very democratic because it meets you exactly where you are. You don't have to be healthy. You don't have to be young. You don't have to know breath work. You don't have to be spiritual. There's no funny hats or books to read. Even my book, you don't even need to read it. It's just the willingness to experience what's there, and you have that. And that, I'm just saying to you, because I've worked with tens of thousands of people, that's a very unique quality to have. Like, you have a certain purity to you, and I don't your listeners must know, your friends must know you, and probably are going, yeah, that's true. And I can just see that in your countenance, that you're a very deep human with a deep heart and a sensitive feeling, but you're all in.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you're all in. And that showed up in the way that you did the breath work and what you got out of it. Like, I come out of it inspired and connected, but not everybody's that's not what it is for everybody. So you're in my soul family.
So I love that.
Yeah,
Because I was so grateful of you're right. If I do something, I'm usually all in. And
yeah,
this year especially, like, that has been my goal because I, again, am an Enneagram 3. I'm very driven.
mm,
I'm like, if I gotta be in school, that was failing to me. And so to slow down and drop into my heart versus just think in my head and go for achievement has been a big change for me. Yeah. Do you feel like you need an adventure or a new challenge in 2025? Join Jeff and I on our Peru trip. We're going to do a 1-day hike to Machu Picchu. It's always been on my bucket list, but it's becoming more and more restricted. So, right now, you can still walk around Machu Picchu, but I believe that won't be the case for long. We're also going to explore the Amazon jungle, the city of Lima, have the option to hike Rainbow Mountain. It's going to be a wonderful trip. It happens next September. See all the full details in the show notes.
I mean, not to belabor the point in public, but I've been doing this 35 years, and I've done lots and lots of private sessions and stuff, but somewhere around the pandemic, I was just slowing down for wanting to work with people. And I'm more about, like, where am I supposed to be and who am I supposed to be with? But you really pursued this, and I didn't necessarily want to say yes, but I kind of had this feeling that about this, and you ended up proving this correct. And I think that uh, you're looking for something, and what you're looking for is the bridge between your type A self and your spirituality. You told me before we started you're Pisces, and Pisces is the sign of spirituality. It's the last sign of the zodiac. It's the end of the self, and the connection to the all. And it's so funny, so many Pisces I know want to be really practical, Like they acting like type A's, but Pisces is not a type A sign. It's a little fish in the water, like it's romantic and poetic and emotional and dreamy and philosophical. But every Pisces I know likes to like be really organized and practical. And it's kind of funny. And I feel like the reason why you probably created this, what you wanted was confirmation of spirituality in real life so that you could maybe let go. Because I can see that part of your type A-ness is a love is okay. I'm giving you this reading in public.
It is, yeah, for sure.
Oh, all right. The part of your type A-ness is a little bit of a defense. Like I get that you are very energetic and excited, but if you could just relax like you did at the end of the breath as part of your life, you would have everything. And I
Mm,
think that why you love the breath, I'm realizing now, is because the breath forgave you the most visceral, like it wasn't just theoretical. You had a very somatic, visceral experience of your own spirituality at the end. And it came from your effort just to just by breathing. And I feel like that was something you were already looking for, whether you knew you cast out a message to the universe for me to come along or not. But I've been in this from my side for so long. I know my people, like, and so yeah. And like I said, if someone wants to book a private, it's hard to get a private session with me, and let alone for me to just give it to you. So I did that because I just yeah, the message was say yes. So I did.
yeah. I think that's super interesting how things work sometimes because meditation is new, something I started this year. And
Mm,
one thing is just meditating like on health and freedom were the two things that I've been really
mm.
putting out there. And Joe Dispenza is the one I typically will follow. And he just is like, put out what you
Sorry,
want.
who is that? I didn't hear what you said.
Joe
Who?
Dispenza.
Oh, Joe Dispenza. Okay, go on.
Yeah. And you just get it in a way that you maybe least expect it. So even on this, we met on a podcast form and most of the people too, just like you said no, most of the people I say no to as well. But for some reason, I'm like, I don't even know what this is, but I have to find out and to pursue that as well. Sometimes you get what you're least expecting and it comes to you in a way that you just never expected it to.
Well, sometimes even on that podcast forum, people are people want to have podcasts to be an expert in things. And I like being a student. It's easier than being a teacher. Because, it's open. It's just open. I'm allowed to make so many mistakes. But as a teacher, the expectation is that I have to know all these things and like guide all this stuff. It's just a lot of pressure. I mean, there's pressure on us as students to grow because life is sacred because it ends. So there's pressure to do something with your life. But I feel like my point is that you didn't come to me like an expert in what your field was. You came to me as a person interested in learning something. That too is really unusual in that world because a lot of the podcasts, what I don't say yes to is like, I don't want to get on a podcast where somebody else is some expert about. To me, that's just the ego of it's not interesting. I like real this to me, if I watched this conversation, I would find it very entertaining. Um,
I agree.
yeah,
Like real and authentic is definitely what I'm
yeah,
also drawn to.
yeah.
I'm guessing, you said it, you've worked with tens of thousands of people over the years. And I'm just curious because I know that you have seen a lot of change in people
Yeah.
without naming names or, you can switch them around. Is there like one or two stories that you have seen a transformation in people?
um, I'm just laughing because like I don't even know where do I was thinking myself, I'm like, I'm such a crazy, unstable, insecure person, and look at me, I seem almost normal. Um, but, well, some of the biggest things happened early on, like where I was really working with people, like with things like migraines or chronic fatigue. I had a woman who had been in a wheelchair with MS for 2 years, and she breathed with me every day, and then got up and walked, like stuff like that. But the way I and the way I uh, look at it now is not so much for the miracle, because I'm just turned 61, so I'm more interested in the process with people, to help people to develop a way to be in their life more than just sort of this. I mean, the miracle of transformation to me is if you live with anxiety and then you don't after we've been working together. So I like the garden variety problems, because the garden variety problems that everybody has are so hard to change, or there wouldn't be 10 million wellness businesses trying to help you with them. And where I feel my attunement is, and my gift for people, is to give. There's two sort of main effects of trauma and conditioning. One is to be feeling avoidant, meaning I don't want to feel anything that's going to be uncomfortable, remind me of the past. And the other is uh, an inaccurate interpretation and perception of your reality. So, in other words, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, you don't want to feel, and what you think is wrong. So, the breath work puts people in a direct communication with the truth. And so the mind clears up, and there's more flow, and there's more willing to feel. And almost every problem is solved by that. I mean, it's not just one fix. The reason why we do twice a day during this retreat is because you have to go back to it. There's so many tentacles, so many roots in the earth of these patterns. Um, so yes, I've helped. I had 2 sessions this morning with people that I am working with, and we were both of them had just come to an end of like a period of working together of 40 days, and I I'm always able to track what those changes are in people, but the biggest changes that I notice now, maybe because of the way I'm working, is that people are more joyful about the process of what they're going through, which isn't about just getting rid of problems, or it's about being able to be in any situation and feel like you have agency and autonomy, and you're not in resistance because you don't want to feel things. Most people live in some kind of blame and victimization, I hate to say, meaning the problem is out there. Something happened to me that I'm not the creator of, or I'm blaming someone because I feel this way because you did something to me. And the longer you get into this kind of work, particularly the breath work, you start to see that you are truly the creator of your own energy, everything that's happening, because nothing's going on right before you lay down to breathe, and then you're breathing, and this whole universe of stuff. You said tears come up, but from where? And when you start to realize all this is inside you, and that you mostly are in resistance to yourself, then when you stop resisting, it frees up your life, and then you stop looking out and thinking that the things that people are doing have anything to do with it's all your creation. So that to me is the and I didn't give you a specific example, but if you want me to, I can, but I already rambled enough so far.
No, I think you mentioned a few of just one, anxiety, two, MS, three, just yourself. I think that probably is the biggest testimony. You describe yourself as anxious and unstable, but I would never have described you as that. Like you had started a company, you've written a book, you're very successful, and
Three
you
books.
cool. Yeah, 3 books. So
Mm.
um that to me is probably such a great
I I say 3 books because I failed most of school. I failed most of high school. I didn't read my first book till I was 15. Maybe I'm a little bit on the spectrum in some way. I'm not sure, but like I definitely didn't understand school and I couldn't do it. I couldn't figure it out. And so I I had a real like I'll I lose stuff all the time, but I'll remember your astrological. I'll remember any conversation. I'll remember every moment of that breath work for the rest of my life. I don't know why that is. So I couldn't read or write. Um, and my first book took me 7 years to write because I just didn't even know how to write. But the fact that, and now I write a newsletter pretty much every day. It's free. Anybody can go on my website and hear me. And I become a writer. To me, that's like a transformation because I had no voice or no understanding or no command of the language. I was also a very shy kid who didn't say anything. I was really nervous and shy. And now I'm hard to shut up. So to me, I am, but I'm still working on lots of things. It's not that I'm still just uniquely unstable. For example, I traveled nonstop for 20 years. I good at my work, but not the best at traveling. I just because I tend to like not know where I am in time and space because I'm more attending to all these energetic things. So when the pandemic hit, it was saved my life just staying home. I got a dog and an air fryer as people do. And in September, I decided to go out and travel again because I felt like I needed to be in person with people. And the day before I left, I was going to shave and I like chopped off the top with a razor, the top of my fingertip. That was my first trip. This is my second trip. I forgot some of my important clothes. My third trip, I got sick. The fourth, like just stuff like that. So I am this person who's not you that like the world is a confusing place to me, but I have learned how to function in it because of the work that I've done on myself. And I feel like if I can be stable enough to fulfill my purpose, I could help anybody with literally any problem. So,
I think it's just that breath work really can help anyone in like so many different situations because that was one of my questions of like, who is it perfect for? But honestly, the way you describe trauma and the way it can help people, I believe it's for everyone.
well, I mean, they say with the like business stuff, if you say who are your clients and you say anyone, that's not how you're supposed to do it. But anyone, well, every facilitator works differently. I don't train people to be like me because I have my own unique way of doing things. Music is a big part of the way I use uh, the way I will touch. But if someone was a massage therapist or um, so all this is to say that anybody can gain benefit from breath work if they're willing to do it. But the people that I am looking for have some urgent need to change and haven't quite found what they're looking for in the regular world or even from I this year I had 3 people who trained in other breathwork methods had found me and thought my technique and teaching was better and ended up are coming into my training. So I I feel like I'm interested in the people who can't get their needs met elsewhere because that's probably who I was in life. But if you were to meet, well, even my partner Sarah, my business partner, she's been with me for 12 years. She's got this she's and I'm a bit of a hermit. I have a unique way to come to things, but she loves to be with people. She's super social. Like she's inside of it when she loves to get down and like get really close physically and like the way she touches is really like will will bring things forward. It's just a very different way of doing things. So every facilitator is different, but part of it is you're looking for a match between what somebody's looking for and what somebody does. And I think because you're in the biz of so to speak, every person, everybody's looking for something, but you're looking for the right fit and the right relationship, because it's not the technique that, yes, breathwork is so profound. That's why it's been with me this long, but it's the relationship that's the most powerful, because the human engine is so, you said things I said to you with my voice, how I made you feel like that. The invisible way that I'm holding this is something that helped you to do that. So it's really our relationship is what made it happen. And I feel like that's the biggest power that people need to remember, even in this particular time where we're in intense overdose from our technology, and because the pandemic we've been separated. Like, being together as humans, like, that's the most powerful, with a shared intention.
Absolutely. I couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. I always tell our team at Orange Theory, people do business with people they like and trust. And
Yeah.
even like when we were, it's not really doing business, but like who you like and trust to hold your health is such a huge
Right.
factor. Yeah. And the older I get, the more I realize that.
It's a yeah, the older I get, it just it's a pretty, people thank me, and I thank them, because it's a privilege. Like, I don't get to be me without that I don't get to be on this podcast to for you get I was allowed to give you what I am. And to me, that is uh it's it's an intimate relationship, guided, um, that is unique, because you're not sharing money, you're not living together, you don't have children, you don't have sex, you don't do all these sort of mundane things. So it has the best of all the most important parts of the relationship without any of the responsibilities on the earth plane to do it. And uh, I think it's just so powerful when you can find a guide that you trust.
Yeah. Well, I know I had asked you after our session, but tell our listeners if they want more information about you or to just some things you have upcoming that they could
Yeah,
potentially join.
sure. Uh, what we spent the last 2 years doing is just having something at every level of interest. So if you go to Effiji, Effiji, Effiji Breath, you can sign up for a newsletter that's free. But if you don't want to hear from me every other day or every day, you'll be annoyed. Um, you can read my book, and the audio book is on all the streaming services. Like, it's on Spotify and Audible and all that. And there is a companion to the book that we just completed called the Trauma Code Experience, which gives you homework and exercises and breath work to identify your trauma code, not just read the book, but know how it applies to you. Every now and again, we have classes. So New Year's Eve day, we're having a breathwork class, and I put it on that day because people go off to celebrate, and it gets very outer, and it's not really that sacred. So doing the breathwork before you go and do your celebration. So that's what I offered that. And then the biggest thing that I'm doing is next year I'm doing a 9-month program. Some people, there's 12 spots, 8 of them are filled, but there's 12 spots, and it's a trauma release program. Some people are training to be facilitators, and everybody's on a personal development path, and that's from February to October. And that's sort of my joy, because offer it's where I'm offering the most of what I can do, because I'm holding these relationships for 9 months.
Yeah. Is that in-person training or via Zoom?
The the first 5 days are in Northern California. So, and I've, as I said, my partner Sarah, she will be with me. So here in Northern California, 5 days, and then everything else is online unless I'm traveling to where people are. And then at the end, it's in person again, where it's kind of a work with the public and celebrate and that sort of thing. That's also here in the Bay Area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Such great things you have going on. I love them. I'm
Well,
excited.
and traveling, we even had a conversation. Maybe I'll come there too. Colorado was the first place I ever went to when I first started traveling, and right after I founded Effiji in 2002, I went to Durango, Colorado, and then slowly up to Boulder. So I I did a lot of traveling in the fall, and I realized, oh, I don't want to endlessly travel, but I definitely, uh, you know, I this one fellow in Holland. I just went to Holland. I'd worked with him for 2 years, and I'd never met him. And then I went to Holland, and he said that the breath work was 100 times more powerful in person than it was online. So, eh, and I think there's just something about being together that, uh, you know. So I'm hope to be traveling in the new year.
Well, good. I hope Colorado can be on your list.
No pressure. You got that look on your face, the type A, like, oh my God, I know. Because if you're a type A and you say yes to something, you know that a pile of work is going to fall on your shoulder, or that's what you think probably,
Yeah,
right?
that's probably
Yeah.
true.
Am I reading you correctly?
You are. You are.
That part of you is a Pisces because you don't know how to say no. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm getting better at it, just
Yeah.
honestly because I've had to with running
Yeah.
3 businesses, having kids, hosting a podcast, like, you just can't do
Yeah.
it all,
Yeah.
but I'm doing
Well, I
great.
think there's a difference between I can't do it all and just in saying no to somebody just because you don't want to.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
If you say no, if you wait till you're overwhelmed and then you do it, that's a not as if it's a little more passive.
That's
But
true.
anyway, if I do come to Colorado, it'll be because you want me to, and it's a joy. So I will not let you stress out about it because I don't want to live a stressful life.
Alright, fair, fair. Elijah, what if somebody wanted to connect with you, tell us, like, website, is that
Yeah.
best or how
Yeah,
would best
yeah. Well, Effiji Breathwork, the contact will go to Sarah, but if anybody writes anything to me, she'll send it to me. I forgot to mention we have there's a community forum. It's on Mighty Networks, and it's somewhere in our website. But if people have like real questions about the work or whatever, if they post it there and I answer it there, then everybody gets the benefit of reading it. But if somebody wanted to send me a personal message, they can click the contact, and they can also, depending on, it is possible to book a private session with me through the website, but I actually have given in my old days given myself choice. Like I don't always say yes. It depends why somebody wants it. So yeah, I'm not that hard to get a hold of. I'm just so hard to get to say yes to.
I love it though, because when you say yes, I feel like it's a real yes, and
Oh,
I it.
yeah, because I live my life as 100% yes. Like I am really so, and in that when I said I'm different than Sarah as a comparison facilitator, like I come in and out of society, like because there's a part people can't take, even my kids, maybe my daughter, like can only take so much of me. I am really, really full on in the most lovely way. I'm a nice person, but I'm a lot. So I'm more in and out with people, and that's for everybody's benefit. So I want people to know. Small tangent, you know, we don't have in the West a good understanding of teacher student relationships when it comes to spiritual things. We just have that old outdated guru disciple model. So when people think they're going to work with me or get something from me, they often don't know what they're getting into. So I'm sometimes protecting them just as much as I'm protecting myself. So just because somebody says yes doesn't mean they know that what they're saying yes to. Because if you want to change your life, I can help you. There's no question I could help anybody. It's just that, do you really want to go through what you're going to need to go through to get to that change? Not because of me, but because enrolling me, I'm going to help to put that in front of you so you can see what your work is. As you could see in the breath work, you could see why somebody might just feel like, oh God, I don't want to do this. Um, so that's part of what I mean, you in your work, you must find that too, right? When you're working with people, not everybody, you're trying to find the amount that somebody's willing or can handle in the work that they do with you, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Everyone says they want to change their health, but do they really want to change it? And are you the
right.
right fit? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the long when you do something a really long time, anything in any business, whether you're, I don't know, a plumber or something, like I'm just at this place where like, oh God, I just want to be with the right people in the right way because yeah, tens of thousands of people. They didn't not everything went great, like
Yeah.
I had as many lessons as they did. So so yeah, I'm not like the guru on the mountain standing back and saying, "Oh, if you're lucky, you can work with me." It's more like I just want to get this right if I can because yeah, humans were so weird when we want change, but we and in America, I grew up in Canada, so in America, like people just think you can buy anything here, and it's kind of insane because you can't you can't buy change. Like you can pay somebody. Well, they say you can't the pursuit of happiness. You can pay for the pursuit or something. I forget the saying, but if you're if you want to really evolve internally to become who you're meant to become, it has nothing to do with money. It
Mhm.
has everything to do with your own courage and willingness. And that's why you said, I don't know anything about this or that or whatever, but like you just went in and breathed your ass off without without any secondaries about it. And like if I breathed 1,000 people this year, like maybe five of them were like you. And that's why I keep repeating it to you because I just want you to know you're one of those people. It doesn't matter what your experiences. It matters how sincere you are. And I'm sure when you're working with people, it's the same. People will say, I want to do the work and have all ideas, but we are so as humans not so clear. Our words and our mind and our energy is not always aligned up. And somebody like me can be very dangerous to get around if you're not if these things aren't aligned because I can sometimes just say something that will just shock people. I don't think of it as a shock, but I find out that people can get really upset with things that I think are helpful.
Yeah. Well, I will put all of your links in there. And I feel like if somebody's listening, they will know if they're supposed to look further into it
Do
or
you
not.
know do you know human design? Have you heard of human design?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Well, a friend of mine knows all about it, and he said that according to my human design, the way that I succeed out in the world is by being polarizing, that my presence gets people to say yes or no. And as long as I just I'm a manifester, I'm supposed to say what I'm going to do. I don't need feedback or permission. Say what I'm going to do so people have a choice and they either want to participate or not. And once I sort of figured that out, it has been a lot better. A lot of people know it's yes or no.
Yeah.
It's never in the middle. So,
Well, I'm glad it was a yes for me. I
yeah,
am really grateful.
it was
Excited.
really beautiful to talk with you. I enjoyed it every moment of it.
Well, thank you. And to all of our
And
listeners, I appreciate you listening today to my experience through all of this. So if it would resonate with someone you know, please share it out there. And always, it would mean the world to me if you would give us a 5-star review. Thanks for joining today.